This is Jennifer Follett with CRN, and I'm here with Mike Crosby of Circana. Mike, thanks for joining me today.
You bet. Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No problem. We are here to talk about AI, which is a very hot topic in the channel right now. Maybe right off the top, can you give us the viewpoint from what Circana is seeing as far as what is the AI opportunity for partners? What's sitting in front of them right now?
Yeah, I think it's if you have to look at it, you have to almost look at it from a number of pieces. I think from a very high level, the opportunity is significant, where I think there's not a clear idea of really how to quantify it, but clearly there's energy, there's excitement around it, and I think they're starting to understand the possibilities. You also see a lot of businesses, again, looking at how do I find some kind of sustainable competitive advantage? And many see this as part and parcel to that. So they want to see what are ways that not only can I optimize my business internally to be more efficient, more effective, more productive, more profitable, but then translating that also to how do I monetize products or services or other things that's going to help drive incremental revenue streams and margin streams for us as a company. So from a high level, general excitement, very strong. I think there's still a lack of a real clear awareness on now how to implement. And I think what we've seen is different ways and different approaches that companies are having and trying to learn and understand and test and validate. And then ultimately, I think we start to move into the implementation. But very exciting. We're also hearing, again, quite a bit from just the channel collectively on a high level of interest and just scratching the surface on use cases and really, starting to think through those relative to, boy, that's a nice opportunity both to be more efficient, effective again, but also, drive some nice incremental business. So early stage, but certainly very exciting.
Right. What are you hearing from the vendors, the manufacturers, as far as how big of a role do they expect the channel to play in this rollout of AI?
I think it's going to be pretty significant. I've already heard from a number of channel partners that there's a pretty good flow of inquiries from mid-size and enterprise level customers that are asking and inquiring about AI, the types of tools and resources, the types of configurations. So they're really leaning on the channel for advice and counsel as well as able to provide them the effective tools and resources needed to implement some of these things. So this is where you get a lot more that consultative element of the channel that's really providing guidance because it's still so new. And I think there's still a lack of clarity in so many ways that it's really the sweet spot for the channel to be able to add the value like that.
Where are we as far as the adoption curve? Pretty early stages here?
Yeah, and if you look at it kind of in the traditional, bell-shaped curve relative to early adopter, maybe more of a mid-level adopter, late adopter, that ultimately where you see just kind of AI integrated fully into organizations. I think you're still at a very fairly early stage. It's kind of early middle, where I think there's in general, and again, they're internalizing it today. First and foremost, how do I leverage it on my own to optimize my company's performance? And I think those are some of those test and validate stages that are going through and understanding what that is. And I think once they have a good understanding of the ways that they can take advantage of AI and the broader technologies, then I think you're going to see that natural evolution of how do I drive it externally and how do I figure out ways to, again, generate incremental revenue or margin or entanglement with our customer relative to that. So I would say it's still fairly early. Now, again, there are some industries that have actually been more of early adopters. If you look at it like tech specifically, has done a very good job in looking at not only from the standpoint of how do I optimize things like supply chain and forecasting and other traditional things, but also how do I market, how do I target, also financially, how they can identify and be a little bit more predictive relative to how they operate their business. But you're also seeing things like in retail, where retail is all about personalization. And you're going to hear more and more of that as we go relative to AI. And it's going to really be important to be able to really provide that customized kind of engagement with a consumer in many, many different ways. They're already doing it now in the ways of targeting. They're doing it now the way they're merchandising. And I think you're going to see those things start to evolve in addition to the regular stuff that we just talked about, like supply chain and forecasting and in general operational efficiency. But you're going to start to see some collective things there. A couple others, you're seeing some really interesting things early too, is in healthcare. And you're going to see this around patient monitoring. You're going to see a lot of things around new drug discovery, which I think that's going to be really, really exciting. So it's going to be much more of a fast track and a rapid prototyping of some of these um, uh, medications and or new discoveries that they're going to have. They're also looking at how do they manage treatment plans and how AI can help facilitate, designing custom, again, back to the personalization, treatment plans for patients and effectiveness. So those are just some of the basic ones, but these are sector verticals that tend to lead with that. And I think they're a little bit more agile and are going to see a faster adoption and maturity on that implementation. Ones that you're going to likely see a little bit further out are more that have are verticals or sectors that have more regulatory compliance and other things around there that are going to have to be a little bit more cautious. But you look at finance and insurance too; they're doing a lot of things now on like algorithmic trading. You're looking at all types of again, as these use cases are just kind of on you're just peeling back the onion and you get a little bit deeper. And I think that awareness is happening very, very quickly. So these use cases are coming on fairly fast and fairly rapid. So, there's some, like I said earlier in the beginning when we opened, I think there's just so much opportunity. And I think it's people just really trying to isolate, how do we prioritize and how do we effectively really understand how we can benefit internally as a company, but then look externally and again, how do we make that competitive advantage versus other people we're competing with?
Yeah. Can you tell yet from the solution provider perspective, using AI internally, where are they seeing the biggest, most impactful use cases for their own, optimizing their own businesses? Is it things like help desk? Is it coding? Where are they seeing it?
Yeah, think about even just at an early, if you look at kind of near term, like that 1 to maybe 3-year period, and this is more of a generalization, but let's use this as an example. Think about it at a basic sense of automation, where they're going to look at what are ways that we can optimize routine kind of repetitive tasks that are there, data entry, customer service, all the chatbotting that we see, other things that are able to eliminate some of those basic needs. We're also seeing more augmentation of AI with people like myself, with analysts, where you can leverage off AI tools that's going to augment and integrate with what we do. And it makes us more efficient, more effective, and more scalable. So those are like the early things. You're going to start to see more too around things like predictive maintenance. If it's a manufacturing company and they have manufacturing machinery that needs to be monitored and regulated, and if it's trying to identify an issue before it ultimately creates a significant breakdown and a loss of productivity or higher cost or what have you. So think more basics there. The second, maybe 2 to 3 years, maybe 3 to 5 years, let's say, think more along the lines of like all that things I suggested around personalization, that advanced kind of level of personalization. You're going to see a ton of the ability to really customize engagements for customers, clients, consumers, patients, all of those types of things that you're really going to see that be embraced and be integrated more fully. Autonomous systems. Now, we've heard about that for a little bit now, but you're seeing it. Smart cities, you're seeing autonomous vehicles. You're going to see autonomous in transportation and delivery, even down to the last mile of goods and services that are purchased. You're going to see a lot of that be integrated in as well. So it's so kind of blue sky right now. But I think as they narrow it down, think about kind of core things that are done at a fairly simple level that can be automated and optimized very quickly. That's the early stage. We'll get a little bit more sophisticated. And I think as the learning comes up, I think you're going to see a lot more use cases identified and developed and moving forward. I did mention earlier, one of the things that I've also been spending quite a bit of time with is with a lot of OEMs, a lot of channel partners as well, and they're getting good level of inquiry from mid-size and enterprise companies that are saying, look, I don't know enough, as I'd said earlier, about this, but provide some counsel and some guidance. And you're even seeing it now in the sense of as effort around development of more higher end devices that you're going to see now enter roadmaps. And it's going to tie in really nicely with, I think, what we've talked about before, that we believe there's a pretty significant PC refresh that'll begin kind of mid 2024, accelerating in 25. That's going to be one other tailwind that's going to help elevate ASPs and improve margins again across the board, because the expectation is I'm going to need the horsepower to effectively be able to drive these things. One other thing that I think we touched on earlier, but it's an important designation, I think, around this recovery as we start to move toward expansion kind of an economy again, is that I think in the past we would rely on significant hiring. That's going to be a nice adder. Not only are we going to get refresh of existing devices, but we would get these net new incremental employees that are going to need to have new devices deployed. I think right now, and based on at least our early indicators that we're seeing, that unemployment number, well, it's still not going to be horrific. It's still going to run around the 4 to 4.2%, even through 2025. So as we look, I think the biggest opportunity is the refresh and the expansion with a higher ed product. And you're likely not to see the benefit of accelerated hiring and that to contribute to the growth as much until maybe, a little bit later in 2025.
Hmm. What about the kind of the makeup of the solution provider? Do you see them developing an AI practice, or is this more, I have a security practice and I have incorporated AI into it?
I think what's always been a huge value is you have really keen expertise within the channel, and if there's a way that you can still stay true to that core expertise, but again, it's the natural evolution of how you integrate new technology, new tools and resources to make that more efficient. I think they're always going to have that knowledge, that core knowledge around the markets they serve or the types of solutions. But I think as you look to these, I think they're going to lean on that. I think it's a little bit dangerous to look at and chase the next shiny thing relative to the new technology and deviate from what really made them successful. And if it is security or if it is within healthcare specialization or any of those lines, how do I maintain that quality level of expertise, but then integrate the new technology into that mix that help them drive it forward? So I definitely see, though, it's going to take some additional dedicated resources, and I definitely think it's going to have to be develop, I think, a keen knowledge and understanding of those markets and of those businesses and best practices around how do you integrate AI, not just at the basic level as we talked about in that early stage, but more ultimately that it becomes an AI-driven culture where AI now is integrated in strategy, decision-making, all the things that operate a business kind of on a tactical level. That's ultimately where I think you're seeing the finish line, where you're going to see, then you're going to need a whole host of other expertise, and a range of products to be able to effectively do that. But I think that's where it's headed, and I think it's not. This long winding road. I think this is going to come at an accelerated rate, and I think people that embrace it and adopt it, both channel partners from how do I integrate it into my solution offering, as well as end users. I think that's why you're getting all the communication streams that are significantly up, because they may not know a lot, but they do know that this is a game changer. And if I'm last to the chair, I may not have a chair. My business may not be able to respond as quickly, and now my competitors have an edge. And I think that's what everyone's looking to understand is, how do I use it internally to be better, but more externally, how do I leverage it to grow my business, to entangle myself more with my customer, and how do I really leverage, that power and that horsepower, I think really what AI is.
Yeah. What's the advice then to partners that are trying to figure out how to monetize AI?
Again, I think first it's kind of you do an internal and an external focus. Internally, I think you have to obviously increase your knowledge and understanding and awareness of what AI is and what it is not, and how does it apply within the business or business environments that you're in, and start at the basics. Like I said earlier, early stage might be just around optimization, automation. How do I take cost out of the model, add efficiencies and effectiveness into that? But once I think there's that clear understanding on how they're operating their own business, then I think it makes a nice kind of transition to externally. My customers are having many of the same challenges that we're having. And how do I leverage that knowledge and understanding on how the implementation started with us? And then ultimately, how do I productize that relative to a service or a product ultimately within a given market that I know and understand? So it's twofold. I think it's learning, and then it's ultimately going to be test and validate. Then it's going to be you design these use cases and then look to how do I how do I engage with my customer? But I think it's such an exciting area. And I think it's still very misunderstood in a lot of ways. In fact, if you look, one of the things I just had this conversation earlier with a couple of people is if you look at the consumer adoption of AI versus commercial, we're already seeing a significant speed. B2B is certainly accelerating and understanding the dynamics of it and the benefits potentially in these use cases. There's still a huge outside of the early adopter within consumer that really doesn't understand AI. I think there's even a little bit of a fear and concern over it relative to, you're seeing use cases for consumer is, make my plan my travel vacation, manage my recipes. They're very, very rudimentary kind of use cases, but I think businesses already embrace that and clearly has a better understanding. And those verticals like that I mentioned earlier, like and markets like tech, I mean, clearly they understand. One big thing too that I don't think I included earlier around tech is also around software and software development. That there's really a ways to now fast prototype and expedite. So that's, time is money in every business, but certainly with software and software development, if you can close that gap, lower that cost, and faster to market, that's compelling for a lot of companies. So I think you're seeing a lot of people embracing how do we be more efficient, more effective. We'd also mentioned earlier, and I know my comment around unemployment and maybe leading into 2025. I think as we go, you're still going to see the continued evolution that we've seen with technology. And what I mean by that is, in many cases, back in the day, a lot of financial people looked at spend on technology was really a cost, and it was about a cost and cost management, and what are we getting the most out of our asset? And I think during the pandemic and then post-pandemic, where you had to do more with less, I think there's been kind of a change in just perspective relative to now seeing IT as much more of an investment than a cost, and understanding that the more I invest, it's giving me higher levels of productivity, and it's giving me better return on my investment. And you're seeing now a more willingness, I think, to invest in technology in a different way than, okay, we have to have it, let's buy it, it's cost, let's manage the depreciation of it. Now you see a lot of businesses really thinking ahead, going, look, if I deploy this and these types of configurations or these types of tools, what can we expect incrementally to what we're already doing today? And it's a big mind shift. It really is, but I think it's there.
A lot of the channel, of course, focuses on the small businesses, mid-sized businesses. Is there anything particular to those business sectors that you're seeing as far as where will they be on the curve of AI adoption? Will they be a little more hesitant? Will they be jumping right in?
I think right now, and again, what we're seeing is we're still down teens from an IT spend perspective between small, mid-size, and enterprise. My belief is that we're going to see mid-size and enterprise because they've got the operational flexibility and the capital to be able to invest and have a longer view of ultimately where this is. So I think you're definitely going to see larger companies lead. They're going to start isolated in fairly controlled environments and then look to broaden once they know and understand. Small business, I think the opportunity is going to be great to do more with less. I think as we've talked before, I think the challenge is a couple of fold with small business near term. And it's really tied to just, again, lack of operating flexibility, still some challenges around talent. And more importantly, I think is near term as this kind of expansion period is expected to begin kind of mid-2024. A lot of the seed kind of capital for their investment and spend comes from regional banks. And there's still a real concern lingering of commercial real estate and what that big exposure is. There's like 1.5 trillion of debt that's due to mature here by 2025. And a lot of the regional banks are significantly more invested in those areas. And why that's important is that ultimately could cause conflict and challenge with small businesses that are looking to provide or gain access to funding to develop some of these. So I think small business is likely going to lag when the predictability improves a little bit and economic conditions get better. I think you're going to see the nice thing about small business, they're so agile. They can move quickly, they can embrace things quickly, and I think they're going to let their size be their friend, as the saying goes, but I think it's going to take a little bit of time until I think you get a little bit more predictability in the market.
I mean, one aspect of all this that's certainly starting to play out is the impact on the white collar worker, right? Like the different roles that may be either dramatically changed or dramatically reduced. I know IBM, for example, has talked about replacing a large number of their non-customer facing employees with AI products and skill sets. What about so how should channel partners be thinking about this within their own businesses? How is their own business makeup complexion going to start to change as they start to incorporate AI more into their own processes?
It's a great question. I've thought about this quite a bit, and it goes back to that old saying, I think, is you either change or you die, and being blunt, but I think it means that certain roles and certain positions and certain functions within companies ultimately will be optimized through AI adoption, and those will likely not exist. But I think this is where the opportunity is for the retraining and new training and new emerging opportunities and positions that I think exist. And I think we have to look at it as there's always going to be technology that's going to make things faster, easier. And I think what we have to make sure of is that we're setting a course for people, obviously, to see opportunities for growth and give them opportunities for training. But to your point, I think a lot of the more kind of core, just transactional kind of resources are likely to be early at risk. And again, it's going to evolve. It's going to continue to elevate more and more. And I think where businesses may want to see a faster rate of adoption or not, I think the trick will be, from a competitive perspective, they may not have a choice. And it may be, I just don't want to do it because I want to stick with my old model. And I think that's where, again, back to the point of, I think you're going to have to adapt. And, and how do I find a way to leverage this and again, reinvent my business? And I think there's going to be a lot of that that's going to be going on, because a lot of the kind of transactional services, transactional products fall within that, just that transactional. And as we know with transactional, typically there's not a significant amount of loyalty, and you see somebody will chase the next fastest, cheapest, better thing. And I think where you have that strategic thinking around your business and where you want to take it and how do I integrate some of these leading technologies in it, you're protecting yourself as far as the next generation of, of operating a business. But it's going to be, it's going to be interesting. There's going to be winners. There's going to be some losers. And I think it's the nature, unfortunately, of technology that there is some good, certainly, that we're expecting and planning, but there's also going to be some challenge with that.
Certainly, folks in the channel are no strangers to change, right?
No, you know what? If anybody is prepared for change, exactly. Channel about as resilient as you can come relative to not only identifying early where opportunities are, but also knowing and understanding what needs to be done to reinvent themselves. And I think that's been the channel all along.
Great. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Really great topic, and I hope you enjoyed our time together.
Always. I thank you, and hopefully it was informative.